Hello and welcome to Open Data and Data Collaboratives to tackle the COVID-19 challenge panel discussion. So today our hosts are?
My name is Kim Hedberg and I work as a manager, strategy manager and offering manager at Stratiteq.
And my name is Goran Vukšić. I work as a technical manager at Stratiteq. So, AI for Healthcare Hackathon, we are kicking it off on 21st of April. It's the World's Innovation Day, perfect day to kick off the hackathon, especially for such important topic as healthcare. Hackathon is, teams did the pre-signups, and Hackathon is now running on the platform called DevPost. On the platform, we still enable that people can register there because we received a lot of applications by 1 or 2 team members. Teams should be formed as 3 to 7 members for this hackathon and should be registered there. Also, all information about hackathon, what it is about, what challenges are there, what is the judging criteria, who the judges are, and so on. Everything is posted over there. You can access it via this link, aka.ms, AI for Healthcare Hackathon, or via aiforhealthcare.devpost.com. So, how it works? First, if you don't have team already, if you haven't pre-applied with a team, you need 1 team member or need some additional skill in your team, you can still use our DevPost platform or Discord, our main communication tool. So you can register there and in looking for a team channel, post what skills do you have, what kind of team member you would like to have, and so on. On the DevPost platform, you can also search for members that are looking for a team. Hackathon will kick off on 21st of April with the morning welcome stream. And there will be mentors, and mentors will be available to answer your questions. We will touch base again on April 28th and 5th of May. Also, mentors will be available. In between those dates, you are free to organize with your team how you want to work on those challenges, on your projects and solutions. You are free to use any communication tool and any other tool you like, but keep in mind that main communication tool is our Discord, and you should follow it to get notifications about streams when they are coming up, which mentors are available there. You can post your questions, mentors will get back to you and such. So until May 12th, 5 p.m., you should submit your solution. Submission criteria, in short, is that you have prepared the video presentation for your solution, showcasing how it works, explaining who is the team behind it, and prepare the text description where you can add more info like links to relevant data sources that you used, some science papers, and so on. After that, our council will review the projects, select the best out of it, and then our judges will pick the best projects in these 3 challenges that we have. So, challenges we have, it is AI applied to medical imaging, predictive medicine, and empower patients. And for each of those challenges, we will have challenges presented by leading hospitals across Europe. More data about each of those challenges, information, which data sets are available and such will be posted when Hackathon starts. So make sure to join us for the welcome stream on April 21st. And you will be working on the solutions. We have some judging criteria, how your projects will be judged. You should keep this in mind. So first of all, impact. How much impact would your solution have? Is it just solving that case, or could it be scaled globally, applied elsewhere? there is also feasibility, like is it really possible to implement this with technology nowadays regarding the legal or some other aspects that are over there. Implementation, how much you have done during the hackathon. And innovation, are you using the latest innovative technology? Since this is AI hackathon, I'm sure there will be a lot of innovation and latest technology over there. Okay, so hackathon challenges. Today we will talk about predictive medicine. To be able to predict what will happen in the future to both an individual patient or the population, clinicians need to analyze and combine a huge variety of data, both structured and unstructured. So we would like to see, for example, how it's possible to obtain predictive models of evolution of the disease, epidemiological models, information on the response to the various treatments applied, knowledge of virus for the creation of a vaccine, and sociodemographic data on the impact on the population of the COVID-19 virus, or predict the likelihood of a rare disease. Yep.
That's a big challenge.
So we have our guests today.
Exactly. So to tackle this and to get more information about what's happened so far and how we work with open data and data collaboration, we've invited a great panel for tonight's discussion. And I would like to hand over the word to Veronica from Microsoft and ask you to say a few words about this debate and the guests that we have on the panel tonight.
Thank you very much, Kim and Coran, for the introduction, and welcome everyone. So I'm Veronica Jager. I work in Microsoft Western Europe Health. And we have decided to run this hackathon because we want to achieve three main objectives. One is to show the art of possible with technology today. The second is to accelerate the adoption of innovation in the clinical setting. And the third is to foster collaboration. And I believe the challenge that we are going to discuss tonight with these experts covers the three objectives very nicely, because you'll see how the people in the panel have been collaborating so far to address the big challenge that COVID-19 represents for all of us, how they are moving into the use of the algorithm in the clinical setting, so really benefiting the clinicians that have to treat COVID patients, and finally how this will transform the healthcare in the near term. So I'm really honored to have today with us Jose Maria Castellano. He is the scientific director of HM Hospitales. Jose Luis Peñalvo, he is the project lead of the project called Uncover. Is a European project focused on COVID-19. We have also Miguel Armengol. He is the head of Big Data Department at the Regional Ministry in Andalusia, Spain. We have Leo, from a scientist from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and the Harvard Medical School. Antonio Esposito, he is both a professor of the University Vita Salute San Raffaele and a radiologist, as well as the Deputy Director of the Experimental Medical Imaging Center of San Raffaele Hospital in Milan. And Vibash, my colleague, esteemed colleague, he is the Microsoft Azure lead in Ireland. They will really describe how they have collaborated so far, what they have done so far in this COVID-19 topic, around this topic, and what's next. And from their words, from what they will tell us, you'll understand that it is possible to leverage new technologies to solve compelling challenges. But one important key element is the collaboration, is to establish fruitful collaboration between organizations, both in the belonging to the healthcare industry, but also other industries like the tech companies that we as Microsoft represent in this roundtable. So with that, I think I'll hand over to you, Kim, because you have a lot of questions for our panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica. Yes, let's start this panel debate off and find out how it actually started. So, Jose Maria, could you please share with us some information about how the initiative COVID Data Saves Lives starts? Because I think that's where your collaboration started some time ago.
Sure, of course. So it's actually nearly 1 year ago. COVID Data Saves Lives basically went public on April 25th. It included then nearly 2,000 patients that had been treated in hospital for severe pneumonia in any of the 17 hospitals of HM Group. And version 1.0 went live April 25th. And we started having a lot of collaborations, a lot of interest regarding having access to the open data set, which we curated. The data was anonymous. We shared clinical images, clinical data, ICU data, treatment, lab data, very complete episode on the full episode of the patients. We updated a version 2.0 in July, I think, and we're going to, of course, have the version 3.0 ready for April 21st, coinciding with the kickoff of the hackathon for all of you to have access to the over 3,300 patients we have right now in the data set. Like I said, that went live on April 25th, and we started getting various interests, some of which was Leo Anthony Celis, who is really truly the forefather of open data sets in healthcare, and it's been an outstanding pleasure working with him, and I think he's the world lead on this. But we started having various conversations with various engineers, and very early on we started seeing the need to collaborate between clinicians to make sense of the different variables that were included in the COVID Data Save Lives open data set, and the engineers to make sure we were achieving the goals we were setting forth in order to quickly advance our knowledge on the pandemic.
Yep. So now I can hear. A lot of echo here. Trying to fix that before I move on. So, Leo, MIT Lab for Computational Physiology has developed MIMIC, which is an openly available dataset comprised of de-identified health data from approximately 60,000 intensive care units. And it includes then demographics, vital signs, laboratory tests, medications, and more. So could you tell us a bit more about the data set that you have already and how you've been applying it at MIT?
Sure. Before I answer that question, I just wanted to upfront debunk the myth that you can build a model from one hospital and apply it or sell it to other hospitals. So that is the wrong practice about AI. Models can really be used only for the original population that you developed the model for. At the very least, it needs to be recalibrated on data sets from the other hospitals before you deploy it. And even if you just deploy it in your own hospital, it also needs to be continuously monitored and recalibrated. I think that's a very important message to give to the people who will be participating in the hackathon. So we're very much against the model of buying and selling algorithms. I think we will be potentially harming patients. When we do that, we will be propagating and even magnifying health disparities. So I just wanted to get it out there. But the data set that we have has been publicly available for the past decade. We have more than 20,000 users, more than 20,000 people collaborating to extract knowledge encrypted in this data set that is being extracted from our hospital. And I think the most important value of sharing that data is that we share the data curation. So AI is easy. The hardest part is curating the data set, processing that so that you're able to ask the correct questions. And by allowing access to as many eyes, as many expertise, as many perspectives as possible, I think this is the only way that you can really leverage the knowledge that is encoded in these data sets. So as I mentioned earlier, we have more than 20,000 users, not just from academia, but we work with industry, we work with startup companies. They're all getting their hands on this data set. It's a real world data set, so it's going to be very noisy, but at least the curation is crowdsourced. People are contributing how they are defining concepts so that those concepts are consistently applied. And I think I'm going to stop there because I think there are a lot of messages there that can be unpacked. Thank you.
Yeah, I would, since you mentioned that, I would like to clarify something. In this hackathon, we are going after the impact and innovation. So we are not expecting any business plans to be submitted as such. Like we are really want to see solutions that can make impact globally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Leo, could you tell us a bit about the collaboration that you had with the HM Hospital Group? What have you achieved together?
So we have been working together for the last year. We have a project that we're hoping to wrap up soon, and that is using both imaging data and clinical data to predict outcomes. So this is a relatively hot field in the area of medical AI, where you're combining different types of data. So traditionally, a lot of the models that we've seen would only use clinical data, but what if you start combining that with images with 1 million pixels? What if you start combining that with waveforms? What if you start combining that with the unstructured progress notes coming from the nurses and the doctors? So that is a project that has been being worked on for the last year. We hope to publish that soon. And what we have done really is to share with them some of the best practices in data governance, in data sharing that we have identified over the last decade that we have been contributing Mimic and other data sets to the research community.
Yeah, so a very good example of how you can collaborate together. Jose Maria, how far have you come now? And I was thinking as well, for those who are not as used to these areas, could you give an example of how you could apply this data? How can it be of use to the clinicians, for example?
Yeah, so for instance, we just published recently, and I very much agree with what Leo just said about the algorithms. We just published a paper coming up with a risk score, being able to predict based on 5 very simple, very feasible, very attainable hemogram and clinical derived variables, very high capacity to predict in-hospital mortality. What we're doing now, that's I think part A of what we're trying to achieve. Part B would then be translationally implementing that knowledge back into our clinicians, trying to see if we are able to better identify patients at high risk and therefore be able to react faster in order to try to change the outcome. Yeah. And we're studying that at this moment.
It sounds very promising, I must say. So you're not the only ones collaborating on data. Veronica was mentioning Uncover as well. So Jose, you're from the consortium Uncover, which is a functional network of partners that is capable of harvesting real-world data derived from both response and provision of care to patients by different health systems around Europe and internationally during this COVID-19 pandemic. So could you explain the aim of Uncover and how you work together?
Sure, thank you. So Uncover was funded last November through a coordination and support action sponsored by the European Commission. And the aim of Uncover is to foster, the aim of this call is to foster networking between different research organizations. So Uncover started with first conversations we had with HM Hospitals and Jose Maria Castellano. We started to use their databases to query for specific research questions we had in my team. And from there, we started to grow a larger network of partners. So within Uncover, we are using data that has been gathered as part of the treatment of patients at hospitals mostly. And we are trying to use all this data, real-world data, as Leo mentioned before, in a harmonized way to answer questions related to mostly COVID-19 patient characteristics and disease progression.
And I guess when it has to do with data from so many different sources, there's always the question about who owns the data and who can access it and so on. How have you worked with that, considering maybe different legislations in different countries and so on? I could imagine that would be a great challenge.
Indeed, so Uncover has 29 different partners, mostly from Europe, but also from outside Europe, from Brazil, from the US, also Korea. So it's a big challenge to comply with all the different national legislations, and also with the internal legislations of each of the hospitals, primary care services, registry data. They all have different layers of data protection. So for Uncover, we have mostly two types of partners. We have data providers and we have data users. Data providers own their data. The hospital owns the data, and they decide which observations and variables are shared with the rest of the partners. The data is shared in a secure OPAL system where the data is harmonized in terms of names of variables, and it can also be visualized, but also in aggregated terms, so no individual data is accessible to any of the partners. So this offers a layer that can be customized for protecting each particular data set according to the internal legislation. It also offers the partners to see all the data, the metadata as we call it, so they can come up with research questions and the analytical tools to answer those research questions. And once the research question is decided, then we use the same platform to run the algorithm, and the platform sends us back the output that is further transformed through meta-analysis or some other pooling technique.
Yeah. Would you say that the COVID-19 situation, in terms of the pressing need of finding a solution, has helped in trying to find creative ways of working with opening up data and sharing it, which would otherwise, maybe without having the knife on the throat, would have taken longer time to agree upon?
Yeah, I think all the major sponsors, all the major agencies realize of the potential of all these data that is just being accumulated in answering very quickly very relevant questions. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, we had big questions on specific medications, increasing the risk, and there were these questions were running different data sets of varying sizes. And one of the beauties of this kind of data is that can be pulled together to increase the size of the data and have more robust estimates rather than having just small estimates and small data sets.
Yeah.
But for sure, I think now we need to take advantage of the COVID pandemic. If anything came good out of this, is just really realizing the potential of all this data that is being partly used.
Yeah.
Okay, so questions for Bivas. How technology can help in addressing the challenges that we've been listing so far? And is Microsoft working in these areas to provide solutions to overcome data sharing challenges while preserving patients' data privacy and security?
Absolutely. And I think, when you look at data, obviously there's this whole concern about governance, there's concern about compliance. When you look at the platform that we have, which is Microsoft Azure, obviously it has all sorts of certifications and regulatory compliances in place already. But when you take this, for example, what we're talking about around, patient data and things like that, there are two viable approaches that we can look at. And the reason I'm sharing these viable approaches is that I want the developers to understand that they don't have to focus on the tools and services, but focus on the business problem and use the tools at hand to drive those outcomes. And the couple of viable approaches that I want to maybe touch upon. One would be around Azure confidential computing. You would have heard of encryption at rest. You would have heard of data being encrypted during transit, but with Azure confidential computing, you can actually encrypt the entire VM as well. So at runtime as well, you are protecting your data, and the only person or the key to that data lies with the end user only. So even we don't have access to it, we don't see it. It's all done in a very, very secure fashion. So this is where you're taking the data to the cloud. Obviously, the next approach is where you want to take the analytics engine to the data. So that is federated machine learning as a model. So that's where you can look at edge devices. You can run AI on or you can run your algorithms on the edge and make sense of it all. And to be fair as well, with 5G and things like these, advancements in networks and technologies, this is only going to get better and better as we move forward. So these would be some of my areas from an approach standpoint as well to address these challenges.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
So speaking about how to use data, I'm imagining as a country or a region, for that matter, you need to decide on how you want to leverage data produced every day in your region, how you organize yourself to produce quality data and make them accessible to the research community. And Miguel, you're working with this on a daily basis. Could you share a bit about the challenges that you need to tackle to ensure that society can get the most value of the open data that you provide? You are muted.
Please unmute.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Working now, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, of course. So after all these really valuable 4 years I've spent at Leo's lab back in Boston, the idea is kind of bringing the same philosophy over the databases and repositories we have over here. So after almost 2 decades that our hospital information system have been running, we have a similar situation that you can find in some American hospitals. You are building really big repositories, but when it comes to derive insights from this data, the protocol, the process is not that well defined. So in this new big data department that has just been created, it's been running only for 6 months that I've moved here back to Spain. The main values and ideas that we want to pursue is like integration, number one. Number two is collaboration, and number three is going to be knowledge. So the idea is having just what was called One Health data point, like every researcher from the region can go to one portal where all the data available for secondary use is going to be available, and they'll have a clear idea of what projects based on data can be undertaken. And number two is collaboration, and this is how Leo's lab at MIT plays a really important role, since you don't only need to open up your databases, but also create community, create and get knowledge from all the researchers that are mining this data and deriving knowledge from it. So the idea is sharing every single project that is conducted to mine this data in order to have concepts, as Leo was mentioning before, available, so future teams and future researchers don't have to start from scratch and don't need to reinvent the wheel, so we can advance faster and in a more collaborative manner, and in the end closing this loop of knowledge where all the conclusions and insights derived from these repositories come back to the system.
Yeah. So I forgot to mention you work in the Andalusia region today. So are you thinking about developing a framework for secondary use of this health data, and what is your opinion on that?
Yeah, so the idea here, as I was saying, is after almost 2 decades, as I mentioned before, of using this hospital information system, we do have real interoperability, meaning any citizen from our region can move at any point of Andalusia. And Andalusia is a region the size of Switzerland, having 8.5 million inhabitants, and the idea is that not only these data are available from any patient at any point, but also any project conducted at any hospital on the region. Since all the data repositories have the same structure, they can be automatically scaled for the whole region. So as Leo was saying, validating the data on your population is really important. So as soon as this is done in one hospital, being one of these hospitals the headquarters of the pilot for trying one of these systems, automatically we would be able to scale it to the whole region, since the hospital information system structure is the same. Since I was working both with Jose Maria and Leo in this COVID project, trying to create an algorithm able to predict mortality, the idea is applying all those valuable lessons learned from the project in order to build clinical decision support systems that research, not only researchers but also clinicians from the area can use in order to provide better care to their patients.
I see. Thank you. So we are going to leave Spain and move to Italy. And Antonio, you're from San Raffaele Hospital and Vita Salute University, and you've been working on a similar, in the similar matter as Jose Maria, but in Italy then. So could you tell us a bit more about your initiative and work?
Yes, thank you. Our initiative is similar to the initiative of Jose Maria, because the main objective is exactly the same. We want to know when we see a patient that is positive to swab for SARS-CoV-2, we want to say this patient is at a very low risk, so has not essentially no risk to death, or this patient has a high risk or an intermediate risk. So the objective is the same. The particular approach that we have developed in Milan, using a large data lake that involves all patients of the North Italy and center of Italy, is that it is completely automatic. It does not require any kind of lab test and any kind of clinical information, but just the age and saturation and the data sets of the CT scan. This is particularly interesting because it allows to predict the mortality, and so to predict the risk of the patient and to have a score of the patient without any kind of intervention of any operator, any laboratory, any clinician. And so it is completely automatic and completely unbiased. And the prediction is very good, and we are finalizing the publication just now. So what I want to underline is that a very important development in the production of this score is that we have set up a sort of integration among artificial intelligence and human intelligence. And I think that it is an issue that is related to what say Miguel and Leo. It is very important to create the framework between different expertise, between computer scientists, clinician, statistician, because this can shorten a lot the time that goes from the initial data lakes and the final clinical applicability of the tools that we have developed. Because the strong collaboration and a mixed approach that is partially data-driven and partially hypothesis-driven can provide a final tool that is really in a very fast way provided to the clinical world and useful for to classify the patient. Obviously, the question, it is very important because it is very important to know at the starting point, which is the risk of the single patient, both to try to have a more aggressive intervention on patients that have a high risk of death, but also to try to reduce the impact on the hospital and on the healthcare system due to the hospitalization of patients that can be cured at home or with the other approach on territory. So this is the reason why it is very important. The last point is that I think that a data lake like this, or like the data lakes that was presented by Leo, could provide, if correctly managed with a framework of specialists and with artificial intelligence, can provide a lot of very important information. For example, it could be very important to understand and to predict the class of patient, the class of subjects that have to receive the vaccination before and the patient that have to receive the vaccination after, which kind of vaccination give to the single patient. So I think that it is really a big opportunity to work on a data lake like this one.
Yeah, it must be quite special to actually have the possibility to try out so many new things. Because for each step we take in the pandemic, there are new ways of learning things, and then if there's a new way, we can apply what we already learned in the second one, and so on. So how far have you come with using the algorithms in the clinics, and what do you see as the next step?
Our next step is exactly to use the algorithm in the clinic. We have already 2 different populations in different hospitals that are assessed prospectively with this kind of score. The subsequent step is to try to make the resource allocation based on the score. So it seems that we have 3 classes of subclassification of patients based on the score itself, and we are designing 3 different tracks for these 3 different kind of patients. So patient at low risk will be managed at home with some device some wearable device for monitoring. Patient at medium risk will be hospitalized in first level hospitals, and patient in the higher class of risk will be hospitalized in 2 level hospitals with all the support of the ICU. This is the final idea and the next steps of our project.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. So it is obvious that AI in healthcare is not a question about the future. It is technology that can be applied already today. So question for Bibash: how are Microsoft supporting organizations around the world in accelerating research and innovation in this area?
Perfect. I think it's a very good question, and I think it's prudent for me to mention that Microsoft last year launched a 5-year program actually to empower researchers and organizations with AI to improve the health of people and communities around the world. The program was underpinned with a strong foundation of privacy, security, ethics, and developed in collaboration with leading experts in the medical field as well. So, this is a worldwide initiative, and you can go and look at it as well. You can see a list of grantees, but there were just a couple of grantees that, in the interest of time, I wanted to mention as well. One of them would be the St. Jude's Cancer Hospital, one of our prime grantees, and using the power of Azure, they built one of the largest cloud-based genomic resource for pediatric cancer, and a data sharing model which could be used to accelerate life-saving research. That's just one of them. I can go into the details, but the other one that I wanted to mention was Folding at Home, and this was a distributed computing project at Washington University in St. Louis, and what they did is that they're using AI to discover how the the SARS-CoV-2 spike binds to human proteins and a variety of novel binding sites as well, so that you can actually do a lot more accurate drug targeting. I mean, these are just some of the examples which fall under the AI for Health initiative that we are working with a lot of organizations and research arms across the globe to help them accelerate research. And just the last point that I also wanted to mention, in addition to AI for Health, we have Microsoft for Research as well, and that's where we developed a project in RAI. And as you go through the whole process, you'll realize that your technical mentors will walk you through it. And it's a machine learning developer toolkit that you can actually use for quantitative analysis of 3D medical images. So I think these three I'd like to call out, and AI for Health is something that we're doing globally as well.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
So before we move into looking at the Hackathon challenge in particular, I'm a bit curious to know, so besides collecting data and creating algorithms and validating and making sure that it's applied, what would you see as additional challenge that will come up? Because obviously this will spread. We are in the movement, we're opening up data more and more. What new challenges are we going to face in terms of organizing data and so on going forward? What will you say, Jose Maria, on that topic?
Well, some of these have been mentioned. I mean, I think we need to first of all acknowledge the power of data, both in order to help us make better clinical choices, but I think also to be more efficient. I mean, we are also leveraging our data to improve the efficiency on our own processes of clinical management of our patients. So there are different layers and different aspects you can be looking at, and it can make you be more efficient and more effective, towards patient. And it can also, I think, is going to revolutionize. I mean, I'm the scientific director for the Research Foundation. I mean, running clinical trials is getting, progressively costlier, more difficult. You need to include larger number of patients because the gold standards are being more effective. So I think we are now seeing the beginning of a new era in clinical research as well, where I think digitalization, data is going to play an important role. So I think we are only starting to unravel very, very first steps, baby steps on what we can do. COVID has been a catalyst, I think, certainly for us. It's been a catalyst to acknowledge and start leveraging the value and the potential of the data we have. We are now moving, and again, we are obviously collaborating with you guys on the hackathon. We are collaborating with Leo, with Miguel Angel, and with Jose Luis in the Uncover. But I think COVID helped us realize that data can help solve novel diseases, but it can certainly help advance our better treatment of the old diseases, which are still #1 killers, like cardiology, oncology, neurological diseases. So certainly we're moving now toward that direction. And in this aspect, we have a collaboration with Microsoft working on colorectal cancer, also with Miguel Angel, who is going to provide data from Andalusia, so we can both come up with optimization of first colorectal cancer, and if we can learn how to do that, we will move on to different diseases in cancer, and we will share our open data on our own oncological patients. We're hoping this is, I think it's been certainly a successful idea, movement, and it's been a win-win for everyone, ultimately, and most importantly for the patients. But we're trying to keep on this track of, studying the data, but then making it available for other researchers to advance as well.
Yeah, because we were speaking about the other day the challenge of curating data, and I know, considering that you're working with so many different countries, you've probably been addressing this challenge a lot going forward. What's your view on how that topic is going to have to be approached by the different hospitals as well that join in this kind of open data collaboration and so on?
Yeah, to me, the major challenge we are facing is what is the best way and the most ethical way of merging these data and using all these data together. It's not an easy task, and it's not quite facilitated by the current legislation that we have. We have some more homogeneous legislation here in Europe, but when you try to, for example, merge your data with international data, it's almost impossible. So the infrastructure and the solutions we have at hand are quite restrictive and don't allow to a proper integration of the data. There's always some limitation in the variables that you can use. So that to me is a major discussion that needs to happen with the health agencies and the sponsors, and how to create synergies. For example, in Europe, there is at least 5 or 6 projects similar to us, dealing with observational data coming from hospitals. And when we are trying to discuss this issue together, we all have the same issues. So we are also pushing into probably an enlarged consortium that can lobby a little bit to whoever is making this decision at the European Commission level, to establish an infrastructure that allows us to really share the data quickly, because now there is a lot of hurdles in this aspect.
Yeah. Antonio, I'm thinking about when clinicians are going to use the data, it's important obviously that they understand where does the data come from, how can we define it, how can I trust it, of course, but also how can I apply it. So I would assume there is quite some teaching and increasing the knowledge in the clinician level to be done as well to make this work at scale. How do you see that challenge being addressed?
Yes, it is a very important challenge, because obviously there are 2 levels of complexity. The first one is that to apply in the clinical setting an algorithm that is developed by AI, by a data-driven approach in AI, we have to understand which is the meaning. It is not sufficient to say that this approach has this kind of predictability. Is the same in the pharmacological research. When you find that a new drug has an effect on some disease, it is not completely sufficient to use the drug, but you have to understand which is the pathophysiological meaning that explain this effect, to have the capability to produce this drug in a way that could be applied safely in the clinical setting. And the same is for the AI algorithm. And so this is very important, and this is what I want mean when I say that it is very important, the interaction between clinician and computer science. The second point is that we need very much an increase of knowledge in the clinical, in the clinician about the possibilities of AI, what is AI, and how we can use AI. Obviously, it is very important to introduce these concepts starting from the medical degree. So I think that each course of medicine should include not only, we know that in any course of medicine we have very large courses of statistics, for example. But this course of statistics should be implemented or should be integrated with an equivalent part of lessons and of examination about AI, about this new, because we know AI is a sort of very powerful and with the statistics with other rules. So we have to starting to introduce these issues to the students of the first year of university in MD.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the only way, and we have to continue doing specialization, and obviously it should be an important part of the PhD programs.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so let's move forward and have a look at the Hackathon challenge that we are looking closer at, the predictive medicine. So to conclude, the Hackathon challenge is about being able to predict what will happen in the future to both an individual patient or the population. And here the clinicians need to analyze and combine huge variety of data, both structured and unstructured. And that's what we've been talking about tonight, of course. And we would like to see, for example, how it's possible to obtain predictive models of evolution of disease, epidemiological models, information on the response to various treatments applied, knowledge of the virus for creation of vaccine, and socio-demographic data on the impact on the population of the COVID-19 virus, for example. And that will help us predict the likelihood of rare diseases as well. So to look a bit closer on that, which data sets will be available for the ones who choose to hack on this challenge? Jose Maria, did you have any feedback there?
Sure. So we're going to be updating our own data set with, like I said before, over 3,300 patients hospitalized. I know Sanitas also joined the hackathon, and they came up with a similar initiative called Data for Good, and they have already, and they will share the data with all of the teams. And of course, from Italy, Ospedale San Raffaele, I think, is doing something similar. So there's going to be, I think, sufficient data combining all the patients from Spain, Italy. And my concern, though, being practical, is that, you know, the solutions need to have an impact, feasibility, implementation, innovation. But I think we need to come up with viable proposals, because, like Leo said, we've been working for over 1 year, and we're still wrapping up a few of the you know, algorithms, ideas, solutions. So I think we need to look at it carefully from the beginning, make sure we can attain the, you know, goals at the time we've set, which is just a little over, I think, you know, 4 to 6 weeks. So we will have regular contact with the teams, but we need to be very practical in our approach to really what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. So which questions would you most like to have answered during the hackathon?
So, I mean, this is an ongoing, I think, you know, COVID research, everybody is working on it. It's going to be tough to come up with a novel solution. What may be interesting, though, it's maybe with larger sample sizes, so including Sanitas, including Italy, including HM hospitals, if we can confirm a few of the you know, risk scores or a few of the notions we have about the disease. Also, we have longitudinal data, and it will be interesting to see how patients and the disease has differently behaved from wave 1, wave 2, wave 3. And then also, I would like to acknowledge some limitations on the observational data per se, inherent to these type of studies, you know, so, and especially on treatments, on pharmacotherapy. It's hard to make inferences on treatments if it's not on the domain of a randomized clinical trial. So this is retrospective, real-world data, but it's observational, and I think we need to, you know, make the teams aware that, you know, there's a lot you can do, but there's so much you can do in order to infer from this data.
Yeah.
I'm sure Leo, you know, you guys want to maybe chip in.
No, I just wanted to definitely really emphasize that point, is that especially with predictive modeling, you have to be careful, because whatever models you develop using past data does not mean that it's going to be working in the future, because definitely there have been some changes in the behavior of the people. New tests and treatments have been introduced. So again, I wanted to highlight that models have expiration dates.
Yeah.
You cannot build a model and just implement it and think that it's going to be accurate for the next few years, because you're going to be failing big time. So especially with COVID, I'm pretty sure that the models that you build using data from the earlier part of the pandemic will fail big time if you try to implement it today in Italy or Spain without any recalibration. So be very careful. Again, also the other important thing to emphasize is that the patients who ended up in your database, they've been conditioned on so many assumptions. So the number of the cases that we saw earlier were conditioned on who were tested, conditioned on who got admitted to the hospital. There were people who died at home, who died in nursing homes, and we've excluded them from the modeling, when in fact those are very important features to be included, or very important patients to be included in the modeling. Otherwise, it will be a very biased algorithm that you're going to have. So be very cognizant of what were the biases that were incorporated as patients ended up in your cohort, because that will introduce a lot of collider bias, that will introduce a lot of spurious associations that your algorithms would pick up. And finally, I wanted to say that the data that we're using to build models are data that reflects the biases of the society, the biases of the hospitals. And if you're not careful, we're going to be propagating the disparities that we see now. And we don't want that, because we want to fix the system. So again, these are all very important issues. I wanted to bring it out there so that the people who are interested in this field would know some of the issues that we have to grapple with before we see a more mainstream implementation of algorithms.
Yeah, thank you. Those are really important points, of course, and that's why we have people as mentors as well, helping out the teams to ensure that they go in the right direction. So finally then, what will happen after the hackathon?
So I think the judges will overlook the work that has been done, and certainly, again, with this translational vocation that we all have, I think, ideally we would then circle back into the hospitals or back into the society and see if the tools that we were able, or the teams rather, were able to come up with can improve the delivery of healthcare and hopefully improve the outcomes. We will, at least from HM Groups, we will then reconvene, I think, with some of the teams, and we're hoping that we can, keep on working with some of the teams, telemodally, remotely, seeing if we can go deeper. After only 6 weeks, see if we can, establish these stronger, deeper collaborations and keep on working together.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we are concluding for tonight. I want to thank you all for joining the panel. It's been a pleasure to have you, and it's really promising, and it feels good in your heart to know that we are moving in a direction which will help everybody, not only when it comes to COVID-19, but also obviously with future diseases that will unfortunately still come up. I'm sure that this will have a big impact also on, I'm thinking about efficiency, costs of treating people and so on as well going forward. So there are a lot of society gains to be reached here as well. So thank you all for taking the time tonight and sharing your knowledge. We obviously look forward as much as you do, I guess, on the hackathon results.
Yeah, definitely. And not only for this challenge, predictive medicine, for other challenges also, we are trying to continue the story after the hackathon. There will be possibilities for different cooperation and support from the hackathon partners to move the projects forward. Okay, so that's it for today.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
And we will look forward to seeing you on the welcome stream, right?
Yeah.
That's the next stream.
Next stream is in a week.
Yeah.
So see you there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and thank you tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.